Hello, class, receiving students and teachers.
Hello, Mr. Kanau.
Thank you very much. You may be seated. Recapping on our previous lesson, who can tell us what we discussed in our previous lesson? Walter.
Whose pyramid is this?
Whose pyramid is this? That was the topic of our previous lesson. Very good. Receiving students, what do you think we talked about? Class? Goodwin.
Biomass pyramid.
A biomass pyramid. Very good. In our last lesson, we looked at a biomass pyramid. A biomass pyramid which was looking somewhat like this. Right, this was an example of the biomass pyramid which we looked at. What did we have at the right at the bottom of the biomass pyramid there? In this space here. What do you think that was? Agnes?
Producer.
We had producers here. Producers, very good. Producers. Then followed by Leilin, Ruth, and Michaeline. Okay, Leilin.
Primary.
Primary school, primary what?
Us.
Primary consumers, very good. Primary consumers, followed by primary consumers. Okay, Ruth, what's the next one?
Secondary consumer.
Thank you. Secondary consumers. Secondary consumers. And Michaeline, the final one.
Tertiary consumer.
Tertiary consumers right at the top. Tertiary consumers, very good. That is what we looked at in our previous lesson. We had producers here, and then we had primary or first consumers. Then we had secondary consumers or second consumers, and finally the tertiary or the third consumers. Right, the main thing that we looked in our biomass of pyramid of biomass was that the pyramid of biomass is mainly divided into two types of groups, the producers and the class, research students, consumers. Very good. Okay, so that's the main thing that makes up our pyramid of biomass. It contains the producers and consumers. Very good. Now, our topic for today is on chain of life 1. Chain of life 1. Okay. Right, can I have some students out here in front? That will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of you come. Okay, come and stand here. Right. Receiving students, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of your friends here. Now, we will just demonstrate a little thing here. See, okay, I would like this to get this stapler to get to the last person, who is JJ. Okay, JJ is the last person, and Isaac is over here, and then this stapler is going to be passing from me to JJ. Okay, here goes. Isaac, and Isaac passes to Momoru, to Maria, to Daisy, to JJ. Okay, good. Thank you very much, class. Where did the stapler start off? To me, and then it went through. Started from me and made its way through to Isaac. Good, that's one way. Now, the next one, watch this carefully. Okay, this time, I will do this. Now I will pass it on to him. He will get his bit of half and pass it all the way to Isaac. Okay, here we go. Sorry, to JJ. Now Isaac. Yep. A bigger half. Thank you very much. Okay, now the paper itself doesn't look like as it started off. Okay, so the paper itself is already, some parts of the paper is used up. Okay, can you see some paper, parts of the paper is used up. Thank you very much. We will be looking at an example of this in our today's lesson. Right, thank you, class. Our volunteer students, you may sit down. Very good. Now, receiving teachers, we are still looking at the same strand, the sub-strand. Our strand is on living things, sub-strand, ecology, relationship, and interactions. We are, in fact, on our new learning outcome, which is 7.2.2. Okay, just as the example there, class, and receiving students, I would like you to take a very good look at this picture and think of the example that we did in front, we showed in front. Now, look very carefully on the screen and at this picture. What do you think is happening? You say what is happening. Discuss with your friends. Receiving students, class. Okay, we will hear from some of our friends in the model class. Right, first of all, Donald, you tell your friends what do you think is happening. Then Lisa will have her peace of mind. Donald?
The frog is trying to eat the dragonfly and the snake is trying to eat the frog.
Good. He says the frog is trying to eat the dragonfly and the snake is trying to eat the frog. Lisa, what do you think?
it shows a life cycle over the, a food chain or, life cycle, but the dragonfly is eaten by a frog and the frog is eaten by a snake.
Okay, she says it shows the life cycle of a food chain or a food chain where the dragonfly is eaten by the frog and the frog is eaten by the snake. Very good. Okay, you can see on the picture there, receiving students, I hope you got that correctly. The snake is eating the frog whilst the frog is eating the dragonfly, and the dragonfly is having a piece of munch away on something there. Okay. Now, the food chain is starting where the dragonfly gets probably a small bit of insect on the flower which was drinking on the nectar, and small bits of insect on the flower which was drinking the nectar from the flower, and it is eaten by the dragonfly, which is then eaten by the frog, and the frog is finally eaten by the snake. Okay, good. Now, we will view an insect, and I would like you to watch very carefully and see what happens. On this example here, where the frog is being eaten by the snake and the dragonfly is being eaten by the frog, you can see that there is it's like a chain there, a chain taking place. So that is what we are looking at, the chain of life, which is called a food chain. Now, in this insert video, I would like you to see what is the food chain, where does it start, and how does it finish. So I would like you to view very carefully.
Are we part of a food chain? Where does our food come from? This food chain ends with humans, but where do food chains start? Food chains always start with green plants. Plants store up energy from the sun. How does energy pass along a food chain? And what happens to it in the end?
Class and receiving students, now that we have viewed that little video inset, I hope you saw how the food chain was passed. Now, let us, before answering that question, I know you saw where the hamburger in that video inset came from, but before going there, we'll go back to our food chain there, the one we're talking about first. Okay, so we had flour there, and then we had an insect, very small insect on the flower which was drinking the nectar, and this insect was eaten by the dragonfly. And the dragonfly was eaten by the frog. And finally, the frog was gobbled by the snake. Now, that is how the food chain went. Okay, after watching that little bit of video inset, can somebody put up how the food chain flowed. How did the food chain flow after viewing that video? Can somebody write up how the food chain flowed? Of course, showing arrows and so forth. What did you actually see in the video there? Right, Kalen, what did you see?
Wheat.
Wheat. Okay, you could see the wheat, and what else? Wheat. Michael.
Cow.
Cow. Very good. Okay, cow. And what else? Lisa.
Meat.
Meat. Right, the person in there was eating a hamburger, and that hamburger was made from cow meat. Now, the cow meat got its food from the wheat. Very good. Okay, so our food chain would look something like this. From the wheat, then it would have gone to the cow, good, and finally to the human. From the wheat, then to the cow, and finally down to the human. Okay, so human was the last to consume that bit of meat there. Now, while you were looking at the video, it said that there was something passed from that wheat to the cow to the human. And that was the... Yes, good.
Sunlight.
Sunlight. Sunlight came down and passed what we call, everyone together? Energy. Okay, energy. Maybe it went somewhat like this. From the sun's energy, for example, in this one here, in this food chain, you can see that's the sun's energy. It makes and stores carbohydrates, which we saw in our previous lesson. And this cascas comes along, or this animal eats that plant and uses the energy stored in the plant cells to live. And then later the snake comes and eats the plant eater, or the herbivore. And this is the catcher and eater of other animals, so we can say carnivore. Okay, so it uses the energy stored in the animal cells to live. Right, good. Now, on to our activity. This is what we are going to do for our activity. We will discuss and write a food chain from the community. Then, after we do that, we are going to write the names of the organisms on the flashcard. Up here, receiving students, your friends in the model class will help you to do that activity. What we are going to do is, you are going to be now discussing and writing different food chains like the ones that we have already gone through in your groups. One each. After you have discussed, you are going to write the names of the organisms on the flashcards. After you have written the names on the flash cards, this is what you are going to do. This is what you are going to do. You are going to be stringing. You will string the, say for example, if you have written the name of whatever animal, then you are going to string them. You do that by poking a little hole through the flash card there. Be careful with your hands. With the scissors, make a little hole or puncture a little hole there, and then you take a string, twine that through the holes that you make and join them with the other cards. And tie them on from one card then to the other card. Like I said, you have to be very careful with the scissors. Then you put that one piece of string onto the other piece like so. And once you do that, you should have your first little chain from your first organism to the next one after putting them on the string. Okay, so you should at least have one flash card joined to another flash card. That's what you are going to do. once you have checked and shown your teacher, you can draw that food chain into your books on the space provided. You can draw up those food chains onto your student workbooks. Right, our summary for today. We have one summary, and that is food chains refer to a chain of living things feeding on each other. Our key phrase for today Our key phrase for today is class food chain. Okay, that is our key phrase for today. Our next lesson topic would be on chain of life 2, the second lesson on chain of life. And the materials, pictures of plants and animals from the sea. Okay, so bring pictures of plants and animals that you can find in the sea. With that, thank you class, receiving students and teachers.